Hey everybody, as we enter the holiday season here, we're asking our listeners to gift us with very special ratings and reviews on iTunes and any podcatching service you use. You know, there's nothing better than giving gifts during the holiday season, and there's no other gift we would like more than to hear your guys' thoughts on our show. So just leave us a review and rating on your favorite podcatching service, and our gift to you will be reading out our favorite reviews, which will most likely be 5-star reviews, but you know, we have our standards. So thank you guys for listening, and we look forward to all the wonderful gifts. Hello and welcome to the Critical Breakdown, the podcast where we start at the bottom of Rotten Tomatoes and work our way to 100% fresh. I'm Max.
I'm Scott. Today we're reviewing The Prestige.
Prestige.
Rated 76% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's been a little while. You know, I had to.
Yeah, we're a little rusty here, man.
Yeah.
Get some oil on these gears.
Is that how to get rid of rust?
No, I think you have to derust it. CLR. That's what you put a CLR on it.
There you go.
So let's put some CLR on this episode. What you been watching, Scott?
I've watched a lot. It's been a few weeks since we.
Me?
Well, no,
too.
it hasn't been a few weeks. I guess it's been a solid week and a half since we recorded.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But it's a busy week. It's holidays.
Holidays.
So
Yeah.
we're right in the middle of the holiday season.
Travel, a lot of turkey.
Eating food, a lot of new releases, a lot of classic shows and classic movies to rewatch too.
Yeah. I watched a couple of new releases.
I watched at least one new release and some newer stuff as well.
I watched an upcoming release.
Oh, yeah. You mean a sneak peek?
That's a little sneaky.
Well, what was it?
I got to see The Disaster Artist, the James Franco and company take on the making of The Room, where he plays the famous Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah. When does that wide release? Do you know?
I honestly don't.
Okay. I'm excited to see it. I'm sad I missed that opportunity.
Yeah. I don't even think the limited release has started yet, but
Yeah.
I know it's been in like festivals and stuff. So, but we had a friend who was able to score us some tickets in the preview screening here in Charlotte. And it was a lot of fun. I don't like The Room at all, not even in the ironic way that some people do.
Most people. I
find it totally uninteresting. Yeah. But this was a very interesting movie. It's actually really good too. I was surprised because I think Franco's done some directing before. I don't know, but it was actually just a really well made movie. Yeah. And there's a lot of half the humor comes from just like who ends up being in it, like people that you've seen in other stuff. But once you get past all that, there's still a pretty good movie down there. Dave Franco was the best part though. He had the best acting in my opinion.
That's cool. Like
James Franco doing the Tommy Wiseau, it's funny, it's weird. Yeah. But Dave, I think, was the more interesting character.
The fact that James stayed in character the whole time on set. And he said it wasn't really to be pretentious. It was just he's covered in prostheses. Once he gets in the moment, it's like hard to jump back and forth. Plus, when you sit in makeup for so long, it just feels like you're wasting your time to go back and forth. Yeah. But he was also directing. So to me, it's even funnier to imagine him recreating the character and then directing again.
There's some things about the movie that like I either didn't know or just forgot, like that they filmed it 100% in both digital and film. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense. And it's impossible to know what he was even thinking.
Yeah. So is it a lot of like a character study?
Okay. It's largely a character study.
That's cool. That's what I was hoping for. Yeah. So I was hoping it wasn't just like recreations of stuff. I've actually never seen...
There is quite a bit of recreation.
Yeah, I mean, as there should be. But I've never actually seen The Room. I just know so much about it from reading about it. Yeah. And I'm super stoked about this movie.
Yeah, if you like this movie, it's probably worth watching the finished product.
Honestly, what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch this one first because I love the talent involved and I want to see this perspective and then watch it. Yeah. So it's almost like a school version where you get the context, then you actually watch the piece. So.
Yeah, it's something else, man. But the Disaster Artist itself is a really satisfying movie. So I was really glad I got to see it. Yeah. What about you? What was that new release you jumped on?
Top of my list is Lady Bird. Oh yeah, the Greta Gerwig written and directed film.
With Saoirse Ronan, right?
I don't know if that's how you say her name. It's a
I tried.
Yeah, it's like a very
Irish.
Is she Irish? I think she's Irish. I
think. But
anyway,
maybe I'm just being really
Miss
offensive.
Ronan. She's a great actress, and it also has Laurie Metcalf in it, who Most people would know her as the sister from Roseanne, but she's been in a ton of stuff. She was in I'm forgetting the name, one of the shows on, I think, HBO about nurses.
Nurse Jackie?
Not Nurse Jackie, but the other one, which is funny because she was Aunt Jackie in Roseanne.
I don't know what the other one is, so but it's okay.
Yeah.
How was it?
It was really good. Really heartfelt, just like a really fun movie to watch, but it was also super emotional. There's times where I had fully like formed tears in my eyes, and then within 2 minutes I'm cracking up. It's an interesting movie. I don't know if you know the plot too much of it.
I know it's a coming of age story.
So it's a coming of age story set around like 2003, which is literally the year that I graduated from high school, and she's graduating that year. So it very much hit home for me. And the character of Lady Bird very much to her displeasure reminded me of my wife when I first met her, and which was funny just because when we after we finished the movie, she said, "I thought that character was very unsympathetic," and I was like, "She reminded me of you when I first met you." So
that was a fun conversation.
But there's just interesting dynamic between the mother and the daughter, and that's most of the plot. So the character of Lady Bird, it goes through her going through relationships and kind of going through high school, like finishing off high school, and how people change. There's a huge focus on the relationship between Lady Bird, who I think her real name was Christine, and her mother, and just kind of that's like kind of the whole concept there. And it's really worth watching, especially if you maybe had some issues with your parents when you were growing up and you're getting along better now. Even if not, if you just were a teenager ever, I think it's a great watch. So and it's like I said, it's just heartfelt and it's sincere, and I love a good sincere film. So it
helps a film whenever it's sincere.
Yeah, and it's rated really high in Rotten Tomatoes right now, and
it's getting a lot of buzz.
It's a limited release, I believe.
I think it is, but some theaters that I know don't get limited releases have it already.
That's
so
cool.
I think it's expanding pretty
fast.
That's
good because I know most of the limited shows have been selling out in the major cities. We caught it in Denver, which half full theater, which is still pretty good for a lesser known movie at an art house theater. So it's pretty good. I definitely recommend it. It's for the end of the year here. It's probably one of the best movies I've seen recently. So. And
I like coming of age a lot. So.
So I think you'll like this one a lot too.
And it's got a lot of the young actors I like Timothy Chalamet. Is that his name?
Yes, but most importantly, Lucas Hedges. And he's great in it. So
good. I really liked him in Manchester by the Sea, of course.
There's a scene with him where he just starts crying at one point, and I'm like, you need to stop crying on film because every time you do it, I want to cry. So,
well, he was in another movie that I saw, another new release.
What's that?
3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
I didn't even know he was in that.
Oh.
I think we saw that trailer for the first time before we saw Manchester by the Sea. So.
Or before you saw Lady Bird?
Well,
I don't think the 3 Billboards trailer would have been.
We saw that trailer a long time ago, though. The first trailer for it. But it might have been right around the same time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, he was in 3 Billboards, which I also saw.
Yeah.
And it's excellent.
That's good.
It's got a lot of really good performances. It's is it Martin McDonagh? Is that the director's name? Who did In Bruges and 7 Psychopaths, I believe, are his other 2 big ones. Black comedies.
Yeah.
This one wasn't, because I don't like those movies too much. This one was a little more tame in its the dark comedy. Like it is still a dark comedy, but it also has a really solid narrative, and it hits the emotional high points it's supposed to. It's got Frances McDormand and Woody Harrelson and Sam Rockwell, and they're like the core 3 characters, I would say, and they're all really excellent. And then you have people like Lucas Hedges and Peter Dinklage and Abby Cornish all along the edges of it, kind of in supporting roles. But it's just a really touching story, and it's very funny at times, and it was just a really good movie. That's another one that's been slowly expanding.
That's good.
I caught it the day it came here to Charlotte, so this one's been pretty high on my list. Yeah.
Nice.
So I recommend it highly as well. It's not similar to Lady Bird at all. It has terrible language. I know a lot of people can't watch movies where there's that much cursing.
Oh, well, there's a decent amount of cursing in Lady Bird, but it's just so good and heartfult. So.
Yeah. But no, it was good. I saw a couple good movies there this past week. Thanksgiving week.
My list is just expanding the more I think about it.
Oh.
I watched Get Out finally.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Loved it.
Yeah. Jordan Peele.
People have talked about this movie to death by now, but we've never got a chance to discuss it. So we could just discuss it in brief. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very well paced, and I thought it was clever to kind of market it as like a straight horror when it's more the satire is very much there, and there are horrific elements. but it's almost more of a thriller when you watch it. And
Yeah.
which those are very, very close, obviously. But there's a lot of psychological stuff. But I really enjoyed just the pairing of the casual racist comments to sizing up like, a product basically. And that was just like something that I didn't see coming when it happened, when they were just like,
what do you
golf?
mean by that? Yeah.
Like, do you like Tiger, stuff like that? Like you would be great at MMA, like you're bred for this kind of thing.
No.
Like all those things. I've literally heard people say that growing up in the South to different people. And half the time, here's the messed up part is like they're said without the intention. Yeah. So to see it like in a film and then to see it transcribed into these are people pricing out a product.
Yeah, the intention is put in there.
Yeah, the intention's there, but it's even in like a different way than just being racist. It's, from a racist structure, but it was very clever and very well done. And, with very hyped movies, it's always hard to go in and keep like a...
Yeah, this one's been out on DVD and
I've managed to not spoil myself. I've like actively fought... Because I just... When it came out, I wasn't in a right place to watch it emotionally, which sounds weird, but I knew it was going to be like an emotional movie to watch, regardless of it being like scary or not. But I was just like, I want to make sure I'm like there to watch it, and so I very much enjoyed watching it. But I felt ready, and I was really glad I watched it. Yeah. And now it's good, man. I think all the praise so far it's received is well earned.
Yeah, there's not like a big twist or anything. I think to spoil
it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So. It's really good though. I'll be keeping an eye on what Jordan Peele is doing.
I'm glad that he's turning down a bunch of big stuff too.
Yeah, I'd like to see him do more movies like this. And it seems like he wants to make this kind of stuff.
He described it almost as having like a set of ideas he wants to go through. They're kind
of
like
others that are similar.
Yeah, within the concept, but not like necessarily the genre or the execution. Yeah. Just like taking that style and moving with it further, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then what do you have next?
I don't have any more. I watched a couple other things, but nothing of note. So.
Okay. I watched a couple things of note, I will say. Right off the bat, I watched a new show on Hulu based off one of my favorite comic series of all time, which is Marvel's Runaways.
Oh, yeah.
This is a comic that came out, I guess, like 2004 originally, and it was written by Brian K. Vaughan, who went on to write for Lost. And he also wrote my favorite comic series of all time, which is Why the Last Man, which I've told you about endless times because they were originally going to have Shia LaBeouf in that when they made that into a movie. Yeah. But it never really got made into a movie. But I've always enjoyed his work. He has a new comic series called Saga that I've never read. Okay. But I've read a couple issues, but I never read the full thing in its entirety. Anyway, Marvel's Runaways was a really creative series when it came out. The concept,
a really creative comic series.
Yeah. So when it came out as a comic, they managed to, and this is a tricky thing for both, shows that jump into previous existing continuity. They managed to work these new characters into like the Marvel universe very cleverly, but
like the cinematic universe.
The comics,
we're not even talking about the show.
Yeah,
yet.
I'm just giving some background now.
Sorry, gotcha.
But so it was all new characters, but they wove it into everything very well, and it just kind of fit the Marvel universe extremely well, and it was very much like an event when it came out for comic readers because there were some mysteries worked within, and I like to see what they do with this in the show. But the show so far has been very accurate, and I'll give a little plot right here. But basically, it's a group of kids who, simplest way to say it is, they discover their parents are actually supervillains in a secret circle, and some of the kids have powers, some of them don't. Some of them are just like kind of inherit things from their parents that help them out. But it's really good, actually. It's about 3 episodes so far. It's, to me, on par with how I felt when I first started watching Daredevil on Netflix. Just like a really addictive watch. I don't know if I ever showed you the trailer for the Free Fall. I think that's the network. Freeform Cloak and Dagger TV show. That's another Marvel property where it looks super cheesy.
I feel like I saw
stuff.
it, but I don't.
Yeah, so
I don't remember
this is
it too
definitely.
well.
You can watch this as an adult or a teen and get something out of it, I feel. But it's just really good so far, man. 3 episodes in, so people can jump in.
Yeah.
You don't have to know
Hulu's
anything.
like staggering the release of it.
Yeah, and they do that with their shows versus Netflix just doing the big release. But you don't have to know much going into it other than it's set loosely in the Marvel universe.
I was sort of intrigued by the trailer or the commercials for it.
Yeah. I think the quality of the show is way higher than the trailer that I saw.
Okay, because it seemed very corny to me in the trailer.
Yeah. And the thing is, there are moments that are corny because there's a couple of corny characters, but it's very sincere in it as well, which I mentioned I love sincere stuff. But they managed to capture a lot of what I loved about the comics so far. And they've changed plenty of background stuff in it. But the core of it is still the same, where they discover a secret about their parents. And it's building up to like cohesion between this group because they're all different types of kids. Yeah. But what bonds them is kind of like they grew up together. They might not like each other necessarily, but their parents have this like evil bond they discover. And
what was the one that it was another show that came out maybe 2 months ago that came out on like IMAX and whatever channel it was airing on at the same time? It wasn't
the Inhumans?
The Inhumans.
That looks terrible.
I heard that bombed totally.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really that interested in it, and The Runaways I'm not really that interested in. And I'm just realizing like all the Marvel shows, I think I'm just getting my fill now in the movies. Like I just can't handle that much comic book stuff.
Yeah, no, and that's fair, man, because like I said, we were discussing this before we recorded. I'm having trouble going to see any comic book movie these days, even though I'm excited about some aspects of them. Yeah. Like, I've seen plenty of this stuff. I can catch up later, which I feel bad about, but I also don't feel that bad about. Yeah. But with this, since I have such a connection to it, I was like, I got
this one's like a special property for you.
And I've seen a couple friends and fellow podcasters just like love the first 3 episodes.
Well, maybe I'll check it out then. I'm looking for
when you left last night, because you were hanging out with us last night, I put on the first episode thinking I'd shut it off in like 10 minutes.
Oh, so you watched it all last night?
I watched all 3 episodes in one sitting.
Hey, there you go.
So for me, it was very addictive. I would recommend just like one by one if people want. Like, I mean, there's no need to rush it.
It's pretty harmless.
Yeah, but no, it's good, man. I just really enjoyed it. So
cool. I'll add it to the list.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any prominent stars in it. There's some noticeable people, but most of them are newcomers because they're kids. Yeah. And I've seen some in other stuff, but nothing recognizable. But yeah, I enjoy it. If they they've done some of the stuff. They've leaned into like the comic bookness of it, and if they go fully into it, I'll just have a blast watching it. So it's just super fun.
Cool. Anything else on?
One more thing. We watched a movie called Landline, starring Jenny Slate and maybe John Turturro and a couple other people. Edie Falco.
It's not ringing a bell. What's the story with Landline?
It's my wife found this movie very depressing. I thought it was kind of a bummer, but like also like some pretty good heartfelt moments in it too. The premise is these 2 sisters, I think it's set in the mid-90s, but these 2 sisters discover their father is having an affair and how it affects their relationship with their parents as well as with their own relationships. And there's very depressing aspects of it because it's like they enter, like they put a floppy diskette into the computer and find like these love letters he's written. So they're trying to figure out who it's about because it's not about their mom. And then they like kind of explore all this while one of them is cheating on their fiance and the other one's trying to figure out their relationship with this guy they like. And it was good. It just wasn't like mind-blowingly good. It was just like pretty decent filmmaking. So if you like Jenny Slate, I say it's good.
When the movie come out?
I think within the last 2 years, honestly. One of the Duplass brothers is in it. Okay. Not the one from The League, but the other one. But he's just
Mark is the one from The League. Mark Duplass.
So it's probably Jay Duplass. No, Jay's the one from The League, I feel like.
I don't know, man.
I don't know. Anyway, it was all right. Yeah. Everything else I watched I was more excited about. So
well, there you go.
Yeah. So there we go.
So I know last week when we checked in with you, you said you managed to watch a bunch of stuff that wasn't The Prestige.
Yes.
Did you get there this week? I hope so.
I got there this week.
We're about to talk about it.
We're good to go.
Well, since you've watched it, what's the plot synopsis for The Prestige?
After a tragic accident, 2 stage magicians engage in a battle to create the ultimate illusion, while sacrificing everything they have to outwit the other.
That's such like a... I don't know. The movie feels so much bigger than that. But when you think about it, that does really boil it down.
That's
to
the most boiled down aspect.
Form.
Yeah, but no, there's a lot of subtext and context to the film, and a lot of layers.
Yeah, it's a very layered story. But when you think about it, it does. Yeah. This one's much deeper than most of his movies. I think. Yeah,
this is. We've said it before on the show. I don't know how you still feel, but this is probably still my favorite overall Nolan piece. Yeah. I do like some of his other work, like Interstellar. I love. And I mean, I'm into most of his films, but this one, I went in loving it, and I came out still loving it. So
yeah, I went in loving this one too, and had the same opinion. And watching it again, I mean, it doesn't age poorly or anything. It's just, I don't know, like I still loved it, but I don't think it's my favorite Christopher Nolan. I think Batman Begins and The Dark Knight are I think I like them better. And then I like Dunkirk a lot, but
Yeah.
that might just be because it's so fresh.
I haven't seen Dunkirk, so I can't claim
Dunkirk's
that one yet.
very different than other Nolan
Which is
works,
exciting, actually, because there's a lot of similarities between this movie and other work he's done.
Yeah.
And for me, I think this version of it works best, but like you said, some of the other ones work better for you, and that's
this
fair.
is just classic Nolan.
Oh yeah, this is, like I said, this is just that as a whole piece. It's just really good Nolan work. So,
but like you said, it does have a lot of the similar stuff, like the cast, Christian Bale, a frequent collab,
Michael Caine,
even more frequent collab.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone else that's a frequenter. Those are the two big ones.
Yeah, those are the big ones. Jonathan Nolan, his brother, on the writing.
Yeah, helped him write.
And now Jonathan Nolan is so much bigger than he was when he was just Christopher Nolan's brother. Now he
like
showruns.
showrunner. Yeah, so
I actually looked it up. Him and his wife showrun Westworld. So I didn't realize that they were married. So that's nice. Keep it in the family.
A lot of times you see those like producer writer couples, producer director couples. It's interesting.
Yeah,
interesting stuff.
But we both loved Westworld, so
yeah, and Jonathan Nolan did a pretty good job with that.
Yeah. And I always felt like it was just like, it's just really Christopher Nolan, and then his brother's just there. He's just bringing his brother along. But
I think I've seen interviews where Christopher Nolan like gives his brother the credit for a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
he's like, that's all. Like John could do it better than me. So,
but you could have said before, like, he's just being a good brother.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody ever like really fights for that until probably Westworld, maybe.
Yeah. Now people are like, it's always been Jonathan.
So the reason we picked this one, like we said, is because we're both fond
we just loved it.
Yeah. And we haven't really we haven't done Christopher Nolan yet, have we?
I think this is the lowest rated movie.
Yeah. So
so we want to do a Nolan movie.
Yeah, I think we owe ourselves.
No, you know what? Interstellar's the lowest one, I think. I think Interstellar's like a 72,
more controversial.
71. Yeah.
Which is funny because that's one of his more like emotionally based films.
Yeah.
And also like hard science based films at the same time. And I guess that mix doesn't do it for everybody, which is fair.
I personally didn't like Interstellar, but it wasn't a conceptual issue or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I like The Prestige more than Interstellar.
That's fair.
I think we were originally going to do Interstellar, but we decided to do a little switcheroo.
Yeah. Switch-a-do.
We wanted to open up some room. I think what's funny, and this is just a peek behind the curtain, we don't want to like do the same kinds of movies multiple times in a row. And I think we're like, we can't do both Interstellar and The Prestige. But we're going to end up doing 3 Tim Burton movies in a row, right?
Yeah, like
Batman, the Big Fish. Didn't we watch another one?
I think we just talked about one.
Okay. Recently. I know we talked about Sleepy Hollow, but I can't remember.
I don't remember if we're doing a third one.
I hope not.
I think we're just doing those 2, which are probably the 2 of the better Tim Burton films in my opinion. So, but that is funny.
Yeah.
It is funny that we both like argued about it, then accepted that at the same time. So
I think we both argued about it when we were doing Batman, but then we both love Big Fish. So we're like, but let's just do Big Fish too.
Got to do it.
Yeah.
This is based off a book by Christopher Priest.
Yeah, you were telling me a little bit about it.
Yeah, they changed the plot a decent amount, but Priest actually wanted to say he loved the adapted version and that it made sense and was like a good, really strong adaptation of his work. So
it's always interesting to me, like when you buy someone's property, especially when they're still like alive and working and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you change it, like how much creative rights do you have to do that?
That's all in the contract work, I think. So,
so I'd be interested to read one of those contracts.
What's interesting with this one, I want to say Nolan read the book for The Prestige either on, I think it was when he was doing a press tour for Memento.
Okay.
And then he managed to get the rights when he was finishing up Insomnia. And then he planned on filming this actually before Batman Begins. But probably Warner Brothers was pushing really hard for Batman Begins first.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. And so they went with that. And then this was 2006. So that's when...
This would be after Begins and before Dark Knight.
So then he kind of had, I think, enough clout to pull this off. Yeah.
It had a good budget. I mean, it was a $40 million movie. So,
yeah.
Which nowadays that number doesn't...
It's like nothing.
Yeah, that's nothing. But
how'd it do in the box office?
Well, it didn't actually do that well. Its total run was only 53 million domestic, so it probably lost money. I feel like it has such good word of mouth and stuff. I feel like DVD and VOD and stuff. It's done
I remember a lot of people at the time were like, "Yo, Wolverine versus Batman."
Yeah.
Which is funny now because it's like Alfred's in it still, and then you have Black Widow
Alfred
as well.
versus Black Widow.
Yeah. So, and then you have the character from Iron Man 3 who was supposed to be the bad guy, but got shafted for another character.
Who?
Rebecca Hall. She's in Iron Man 3, and she was originally written as the main villain of Iron Man 3.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They went back and changed it to be Guy Pearce.
Yeah.
So that's why her character was like very prominent in the first half of the movie, and then kind of just like fizzles out.
I wonder why they did that.
I've heard a billion things. I don't know. I don't have any proof on why they did it, but there's rumors of it like being like they didn't want a female villain. I don't know. That, like
has there ever been a female villain in a Marvel movie?
Thor Ragnarok. But I haven't seen it yet. So.
I did just see that one. It's the one I most recently saw.
Hey. Nobody blames you for forgetting Marvel villains.
Hey. Or a Thor movie.
Damn.
Yeah, that's actually a little too mean because Ragnarok was pretty good. Anyways, the cast is really good here, though, all the way down.
Yeah, it's an amazing cast.
I mean, Michael Caine actually doesn't have much to do at all in this movie. And when you think about it, I mean, Alfred is an important character, but... Yeah.
You put Michael
Other than
Caine,
the moral compass, he's not really doing anything.
You put Michael Caine in your films to deliver those like one or two monologues he gets out. And
Mr. Wayne.
Yeah. Why do we fall down? So we can get back up. That whole thing. And
we have really good Michael Caine.
He does the opening and like closing lines, which are also like describing both the plot of the film as well as how you do a magic trick, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best way to do it.
Christopher Nolan usually employs Michael Caine to like deliver children, you know? It's like in this movie he delivers Borden's kid.
I was like
in Inception at the end, doesn't he bring the kids around? Yeah. In The Dark Knight, he's got little Brucey, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you're on point there.
Yes, yeah. Michael Caine was in Interstellar too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he takes Murph.
He takes the babies.
Murph. He gets Murph. Right? Yeah. No, but
no.
I imagined him in a hospital like with Christopher Nolan delivering like newborn babies, and I was very confused.
Well, that's actually how they met. They were both candy stripers back in Vietnam.
That's a thought right there. But no, so this movie has Michael Caine.
Yeah.
You have as like a minor role, but you know the headliners are Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale.
Yeah, that's your main booze.
Technically, both playing multiple characters.
Yeah. But you don't know that.
You don't know that. Still don't know that.
From the offing. Yeah, you still don't know.
You have Piper Perabo.
Yeah, I don't...
She played Angier's wife.
Yeah, she's very beautiful, but what else does she...
She's most known for Coyote Ugly.
Oh, okay.
She's had a handful of other roles. She's in some comedies, too.
Did I tell you I drove past the original Coyote Ugly bar in Nashville?
Is that the original one? Because I think there's one in Denver, too.
It advertises as the original.
Nice.
The OG.
Yeah.
That's the story.
Was it as sad looking as you imagined? It was just fine.
Most bars are kind of sad looking.
That's true. You have Rebecca Hall.
Yeah, she has a pretty major role in it.
Yeah, she's one of the more prominent characters, and I really like her in this. Yeah, I like Rebecca Hall a lot, actually.
Yeah,
so.
She's always like an understated character, you know? She's not like a flamboyant anything.
No. And she's just good, man. She's a very emotional actress. Yeah. She gets the job done.
She doesn't land those roles, those like big sex appeal roles, but she could.
I think as she's maturing, she's gonna like fall right into that category because she's maturing. Like she looks very elegant and stuff.
Yeah,
so
she does.
I think she'll fall into those roles.
She could be like I don't know if she has the charisma to be a Bond girl, but maybe she could be a Mission Impossible girl.
Well, after Monica Bellucci, maybe she could be because Monica Bellucci came in as more as the the elder love interest.
Monica Bellucci's much older than Rebecca Hall, isn't she? I don't actually know.
I think she is, but what I'm saying is in the last Bond movie,
younger again.
She was in it.
Yeah.
He was hooking up with her.
But then there was also Léa Seydoux,
who was like 40 years younger than James Bond. So you win some, you lose.
But a number for MI6.
And speaking of, you have Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
And David Bowie.
There you go.
The great late David Bowie. He does a good job in this.
He plays Nikola Tesla.
Yeah. And it's a simple role, but he brings the mysteriousness you need to the character.
Apparently he turned it down at first, and then Nolan like flew out and like begged him to be in it because he's the only person he pictured in it. But and I mean, I like him in it. I don't think he's bad.
Yeah, he doesn't do anything.
But he doesn't really do anything. Yeah,
he just has. Once again, it's good line delivery where it's just like, oh yeah, that's David.
Yeah.
That's
it's not like this iteration of Tesla had like all this pizzazz and stuff that you really needed. It's just a David Bowie to do.
He's intriguing, and David Bowie is an intriguing person, so that's why it works.
I think you could have had a lot of people do it.
Oh yeah, totally. I think honestly,
Mads Mikkelsen.
Well, that would be good too. David Bowie's like introduction in Zoolander is more like excitement than this.
Oh, for sure.
But
there it's meant to be
exactly, and it's very much framed around it. Yeah. So, but he's good enough in it. Yeah. He's fun because it's David Bowie playing Tesla, which is just sentence people are like, yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
And then you have Andy Serkis, who I very much enjoyed. It's a small part, but I mean,
you don't see him that much without total CGI over.
So it's exciting when he's actually there and like getting to be himself. And there's a good Lord of the Rings shout out in it too. So
yeah, they do. I don't know if it was to prove he was a magician or just like, hey, what do I have in my pocket?
Yeah,
which is the riddle from the Hobbit movie.
Yeah.
It was in the first movie, right? I mean, it's in the Hobbit book.
It's in the Hobbit, yeah. So it's even like a deep cut for Lord of the Rings fans, basically, because if you just saw the movies and never read the books and don't know anything about the Hobbit, you wouldn't really get that.
Yeah.
But if you know it and you know that this guy plays Gollum, boom, like, hey, can you guess what's in my pocket?
Boom.
And that's how Bilbo gets the ring, for people that don't know.
Boom.
But boom. So yeah, good cast, man. There's a couple other small like character actors I've noticed in here that were just like, like that guy played the butler and the nanny, but stuff like that where I'm just like, okay, yeah, I don't really care to look up his name, but
like a familiar enough face, though. Yeah.
And
but the heavy lifting's done by Bale and Jackman playing their multiple characters.
Yeah. And they're both really skilled at it. I am amazed by Hugh Jackman in this film because I feel like he's Wolverine. That's where everyone puts him. He's done other roles, and he's good and stuff.
But that's his iconic
He's
poster
so
role.
iconic as Wolverine that if you say his name, that's what people think of.
I usually like him in this stuff. Like, he's great in Prisoners. He's amazing
Yeah,
in
he's
Prisoners.
really good in that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, once you know he's, like, a great actor, he's a great actor. He's good. He actually has all the skill that, like, he goes on the live shows and does all the musical stuff, and he's good at that. So it's interesting because if you can do that, you can pretty much do anything. And if you can do that well. But in this, I mean, he plays like this like American character who, goes from being like a happy kind of guy to being like an obsessive guy to being vindictive to finding out that he's actually never was American. And also like he's kind of murderous and sadistic.
He's very sadistic.
And the movie starts, and both of the characters you go back and forth with, which is actually really clever. But basically, it starts with him as the protagonist and ends with him as the antagonist. And I really enjoy movies that can do that effectively, where you don't even realize it's happening.
Yeah. So like the initiating event is his. I don't know if they were just dating or if they were married.
It's his wife. Yeah.
Okay. So his wife is like the stage assistant for a magician, and they're part of the crew as well. And his job and Borden's job, who's Christian Bale, is to like tie the knots on the girl, and then she gets out of them. Everyone's seen that trick before. The conversation that's first had is Christian Bale's talking about how, we should do this other knot.
Yeah.
I don't even remember why.
He said, I think it was faster for her to slip out of, because when the knot is not wet, that's a hard sentence to say.
Yeah.
When the knot isn't wet, it's easy to slip out of. But
then
Cutter,
but the rope swells.
Yeah,
with this knot.
Cutter, played by Michael Caine, is like, that rope's going to swell in the water. Don't do it.
Yeah.
And
then they do it. Probably. Actually, you never 100% know, but I'm pretty sure they did.
He looks at her.
Yeah. And she's
nods.
down for
She nods because she was down for it when they talked about it before. And then he like reties the knot. But you don't, unless you know knots, you don't know which knot he's doing.
I still don't know.
Yeah. And this becomes a point of contention because she unfortunately can't get out of the knot.
Yeah. And then there's a big scene that this is the kind of movie you watch more than once because then it makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a big scene. It's like her funeral, and Hugh Jackman asks Borden, what knot did you tie? And he's like, I don't remember. And he's like, how can you not know? How can you not remember?
He's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And they basically like chase him out.
Yeah.
And at the time, you're first viewing, you're like, how do you not fucking remember?
Yeah. First thing you're like, guys, he doesn't
like,
want to
this guy's
say
a
it.
douchebag.
Yeah.
And so the film from there kind of takes a turn.
That
where,
starts their rivalry, though.
Yeah, that starts the rivalry. And from there, it turns kind of from focus just on Angiers and that whole plot into more on Borden and kind of what Borden's doing. And so obviously the act that they were in where the girl dies gets shut down, and they kind of both go their separate ways.
Yeah.
And then so Borden tries to kind of like launch himself.
As the professor.
The professor. More of a working man's magician.
Yeah.
His tricks are pretty simple, nothing super impressive.
He always wants to like push the envelope, though.
Actually, I take that back. His tricks are super impressive.
Yeah.
He has terrible stage performance. Yeah, showmanship. So they bring that up all the time. Where like everything he's doing is so effing good, but it's too fast, too quick, too good. Yeah. People don't notice it. And the whole thing is what were the three steps of a trick?
Oh God,
it's the promise.
I don't think it's called the promise, but it's
the
basically
prestige
what it is.
Is the final
There's
act.
something to turn in the prestige.
Yeah, yeah. So it's basically set up.
Yeah. Cutter, which is Michael Caine's character, he's basically like a magician planner or something.
He builds
designs
the
tricks.
technology.
And so a lot of the exposition for knowing like how these characters are comes from him. That's where he says the line where he's like, he's a great magician. He's way better than you, but he's not a showman. And so you can't tell what he's doing. Like it's too impressive and stuff. Whereas Angiers is more of the great showman, all the flair, the pomp and circumstance of it. But Borden wants to do stuff like a bullet catch. Which is his big, I guess that's really his big first trick that he has.
Yeah, so that's his big end, and he's super excited about it. He shows this girl that he meets and falls in love with. Her name's Sarah, played by Rebecca Hall. He shows her how he does the trick. And showing magic is always kind of like risky because once people know, they don't care. And they make that very much a point in this. But he shows her to make sure that he can't die. Basically, he's like, look, I dropped the bullet out before I ever shoot the gun. And she's like, well, that's not dangerous at all. Then he gets mad. He's like, well, somebody could put a bullet back in there.
Well, yeah, he's like, someone could put a button or a coin or a bullet in.
He's like, I could easily get shot. And then she's like mad again. She's like, well, then why are you doing this?
He went from reassuring her. He's like, oh, don't worry. I take the bullet out. There's not even a bullet in there. She's like, oh, okay. He's like, but there could be a bullet in there.
I love that little character bit because this movie does a lot of subtle things like that the whole time where you learn more about the characters just by their interactions.
Yeah, for sure.
And stuff like that where they both of the main characters have this very obsessive personality and are very willing to push the envelope. And his whole thing, Borden's whole thing is he constantly wants to be living the magic he does. It can't just be an act. He has to push it. And so he goes to do his bullet catch. He's trying to do his big show. He's like, this is what everyone wants to see because nobody cares about his rings. And
he's doing the tapping rings.
He has 6 of them together. Nobody cares. So it's like, all right, let's do the big show. And his stagehand, Fallon, who's just the silent, weird guy that works with him, calls up a random dude in the audience who almost looks like a Civil War general, like this weird beardy guy with intense eyes. And the dude holds the gun out. But very cleverly, when he puts the gun out that Borden handed him, you see his hand flash over it and drop a bullet in there.
I think didn't he drop like a penny or something?
I thought it was a bullet.
Whatever
it was,
round,
and they showed him doing the disappearing bullet a second before as Angiers, who it actually is. But so Angiers goes to shoot him and asks him, what knot did you tie? He plans on just killing him, which is, kind of fair in the context. But
I guess,
kind of, not fully. Anyway, Fallon jumps out and stops the bullet. And
but it
and
still
Borden
gets
shot in the hand.
He loses, I think, 3 fingers, 2 fingers.
So we don't fully want to go into this plot, but we're just trying to establish some key moments here.
And one of
this rivalry.
The best part about the movie is there's so much foreshadowing that you don't even know is foreshadowing. So one of my favorites is when Borden, after the initial not girl drowning incident, Borden's just being like an assistant for this other magician, and they do this trick that they show you at the start where this bird disappears. Really what the trick is, though, is basically they kill the bird and it gets sucked up into the sleeve, and then another one's out there. He's showing it to this kid who's Rebecca Hall's son.
Well, nephew,
excuse me. And he's like, look, the bird's fine. And the kid says, oh, well, what about his brother?
That's like amazing.
And you don't know it, but one of the big reveals by the end of the movie is Borden and Fallon, the creepy stage assistant, they're twin brothers. And they constantly switch between who's
the reason why he didn't know the knot in the beginning is because he wasn't the guy who tied it. This is the other brother showing up to the funeral, but they live the same life basically because they want to live the magic act. And there's tons of moments in the film like that where they go see this Cutter sends them to see this Chinese magician. His name is Chungling Su. And it's based off a real person, actually. I was doing some reading on this. There was a Caucasian American magician who faked his life as a Chinese magician because Eastern magic was the big thing at the time.
It's the foreignness of it.
Exactly, the exoticness. He lived his life for 19 years as a Chinese man in costume doing stuff like this, and then died on stage muttering his first English words on stage in 19 years when a bullet trick went wrong. And he just said, my God, I've been shot. And then people discovered he was never a Chinese man.
People were like, what?
He spoke Chinese the whole time. So you could tell stories like this were the inspiration for the actual movie, but they get, the book and the movie, they get sent to witness this magician doing a fishbowl trick.
Actually, and if I remember correctly, Cutter sends them and he says, whoever can figure out how he does it,
gets an audition.
Gets to be the assistant to that other on stage with that other magician.
So it all ties back together there. But basically, Borden right away sees that this guy isn't actually like a crippled man like he's portraying. That
his
he's
trick
actually
is
super
taking
strong.
a full fish tank with fish and like putting his cloak over it and then pulling it back and it's empty.
Yeah. And that's all pre-death of Angier's wife. So that's just some backstory there. That comes into play because we discover later in the film, very much later, like the final moments of the film, Borden is actually two twins. We can call one Fallon, call the other one Alfred, but it gets kind of confusing. It's easier to pair them on their romantic interest, but also you discover at one point that Angiers is not actually Angiers; he's Lord Cordlow, but he's always been Lord Cordlow because he actually. So that's a line. I've always been him because he constantly mentions to his wife in the beginning that he's just an American who promised his family he wouldn't bring shame to the family. And then he becomes the Great Danton. That's his magician name, and that's a very hoity-toity name.
Well, it's on her. It's her idea.
It's her idea. His deceased wife's. But it kind of becomes there's these layers of like a working magician, the professor versus Lord Danton. And
the Great Danton.
The Great Danton. That's it. And it's also like, a literally like kind of a poor guy who made his own money versus like a rich guy who's jumping into this world. There's like a lot of good subtext in here too.
Yeah. So the big thing with the Chung Ling Soo, Borden says, oh yeah, like he's not actually crippled. He's like everything's an act. They're watching when he leaves the stage and he's so slow and Ginger's like everything's an act, all this. And Angier can't believe it. He's like, no, there's no way. He'd have to live his whole life this way. And then when he gets back, Angier's trying to do the same thing, like have the fish bowl, and he's like, you'd have to be strong as an ox to do this. So then the commitment becomes a big thing. And Borden and Fallon are always talking about how it's all about commitment. And then they show a flashback at the very end after the reveal where they're cutting off Fallon's fingers because Borden lost his fingers.
Yeah. And in the movie, before you know them as twins, Sarah is like, we just cleaned this. This wasn't infected. How to get infected again?
How is it bleeding again?
And so you're relearning things you saw that you thought you knew, which is kind of the whole premise of this film.
That's exactly the premise. Yeah.
What I also love is this film is meta as well because it's literally talking about film itself, not just magic, but like the three acts are also purposely made to be the three-act structure of movies, which is how most screenplays are written. Actually, it's The Pledge, The Turn, and The Prestige.
Okay.
So The Pledge is kind of like setting up the premise of the trick.
Giving you the players.
The Turn is like, kind of turning it on its head, making everything different. And The Prestige is the delivery that wows everyone.
The climax.
And that's literally, like you said, the climax. So
the orgasm, if you will.
So it's just kind of awesome that this is like so multi-layered, and so I think that's why I love it so much because every time I watch it I get something else out of it. I've never noticed that like Angiers was Cordlow the whole time.
When you told me that's the first time I've thought about it.
The first time I saw it I thought he like just had made all that money from all his magic shows and made up a fake personality, but I didn't realize like that's an actual person. So reading research on the actual book, that's how it's intended. I didn't know that until I watched it this last time, but and there's just this part can get confusing. The plot's delivered at first through the reading of two journals.
Yeah, so
within each other. So it's
Hugh
nested
Jackman
stories.
And Christian Bale basically take turns as narrators.
Yeah.
Because it's someone reading the journal, and the journal includes him reading the guy who's reading the journal's journal.
Borden's in jail for murder because the film opens with Angiers falling into a box of water, getting locked in the same box that his wife died in, and Borden being in front of it, freaking out, surrounded by a blind stagehand. And then Cutter runs in and sees him.
And you see Angier drowning.
So he literally drowns in front of him. Borden gets arrested. There's a trial. Literally everyone sees Angiers is dead. They know about the rivalry. Cutter goes on stand to like kind of start the story and kind of give you the background. And then Borden's jail. He gets delivered by the the assistant to Lord Cordlow.
Yeah, like a messenger from Lord Cordlow.
He gets delivered a journal, which was Angier's final journal, and his deal is Lord Cordlow will give you this in return for the secrets of all your magic. And Borden's like, whatever, bullshit.
He's like, I'll give you everything but the one.
Yeah. And so like they go back and forth for a while, but the promise for Borden eventually becomes, we'll let you see your daughter one more time before you die. We'll make sure she's in good hands. Lord Cordlow's like taking care of her basically. Yep. We'll make sure she gets where she needs to be. Just give us the plans basically. So, but he does get the journal, and so he's reading the journal from Angier's point of view. In this journal, Angier's actually goes out of his way to get Borden's journal. So that's where it's like multi-layered. And all of this is kind of within the main story. Well, not the main story, but the opening and ending, closing bookends of Cutter talking to Borden's daughter. And you don't realize it's his daughter till later. Yeah. But so that's like kind of that whole triple setup there. Yeah. And it all culminates at the end into like, like the current time, the current story. But so that's kind of
very
just
complex.
Nesting it. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, it's hard to follow. I can see why this would get the rating it has.
Yeah.
Because you watch it once and you don't realize till the end that you didn't get it the whole time.
I remember getting this one pretty fast, but I definitely had to talk through it with a bunch of people. Yeah. Like me and a couple friends who saw it, we talked through it, and then I like probably watched it again and talked through it again. Yeah. So it's like Nolan, man. Sometimes like Inception. Where and Memento. He does these films where there's multiple layers to it, kind of different non-conventional storytelling methods. Yeah. And it's fun to like talk about. That's what I like about Nolan the most is you have conversations about his movies.
It's spectacle.
Other filmmakers don't have this afterwards. Not all of them. Not modern ones, at least. No. Some of them do, but he's definitely the cream of the crop for people making discussions around their films. Now, it's not a perfect movie, like we said. Some of it's confusing. That journal part takes a while to pick apart if you don't follow it very closely. So I could see how that, like you said, I could see why that rating. My beef with Nolan always in his films is he's very weak on female characters. Mm-hmm. Almost all the women in here exist for man pain.
Yeah. They solely serve to drive the one-note characters,
with the exception of Rebecca Hall's character being a little bit more fleshed out, but still she exists to cause pain in the end for the man. Yeah. Which is weak filmmaking. Yeah. There's no way around that. And Nolan should be, by this point, I hope he's doing better, but I don't know how many female characters were in Dunkirk.
I honestly can't remember.
Interstellar was a bit better. I mean, for him, but not for other filmmakers, but for him.
I'm honestly not sure if there was a woman in Dunkirk.
It's World War II.
Yeah, it's a World
soldiers.
War II.
I get it if there's not.
Military evacuation movie, but I can't remember a single one. Yeah, that's actually kind of nuts.
Yeah, and that's usually my biggest...
At the end, they're actually... Okay. Never mind. But still.
That's usually my biggest complaint with Nolan, and this falls right in there. Yeah. There are probably more female characters than he's used in a lot of his films in this movie, but...
Yeah, but they're not... powerful characters.
They're one note, basically. They exist.
There's no narrative to them. They're just...
They're man plot. That's all.
They're vehicles. Well, they're not even vehicles. They're in the car.
Yeah. But speaking of the journals and stuff, Nolan did say like that was the hardest thing with this film is picking out like the shifting point of views.
Yeah.
And
well, it's what makes it tricky to follow, at least the first time. Yeah. And even watching it again, I mean, it's tricky to follow.
Yeah.
Because if you really want to get full understanding the movie, you have to keep in mind who's reading whose journal, because the writer of the journal is purposefully masking things and
unreliable narrators.
Because at the end of each section, basically of the journal, the person who's reading it reads that he's like, and now you're reading this, Angier, and I'll never give you my trick, you fucking idiot, like stuff like that. And then when Borden's reading Angier's journal, it's like, oh, you're in jail now, you fucking idiot. Yeah. So it's like, I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So this whole time things could have been covered up and stuff.
Yeah. So it's good reveals because the first time you might see it coming with that first one because it kind of hints at it a couple times, and you're like, oh, this he's just messing with them. Yeah. And then when you get to Angier's and Angier's like, I'm messing with you back, bitch. It's like, wow, okay. Yeah. I don't know what's going on anymore. Yeah. But after the reveal, it kind of cuts to like the modern part. Yeah, and the important thing here is, like we said, Angier's is actually alive. He's Lord Cordlow. Yeah. He had Tesla invent a duplication machine, which is a very fun sequence when they do that. Yeah. And they see that the cats and the hat that are duplicated. Right. And so
the reason he pursued this is because the professor had a body double trick, or like a transporting man.
Yeah.
And that was his big trick. And what he would do is he would throw this ball, open a door, run into it and close it, and then out of the other door he would catch it.
Yeah.
now by the end of the movie, he was definitely using a double. And he even says throughout that he's using a double.
He says it.
Cutter even is like, he's using a double. He
Olivia
can't do it
says it.
Everybody says
Everyone tells Angiers it's a double.
Yeah, but Angier says, no, it's too good.
Yeah, it's too good.
It can't be a double.
And the reason it's good is because they live their life as one person.
Yeah, the whole time. Yeah.
What's funny is Angier's first response when he sees the duplicate of himself, when he does finally duplicate himself, is to shoot it.
Yeah.
When if he just listened to everyone and just was like, dude, you're my twin. You're not like, because they hired a double to play the great Danton at one point. And
so to replicate his trick, they found this like drunk actor, and there's a fun sequence with it.
Also played by Hugh Jackman, which is why I love Hugh Jackman in this film, because he's playing multiple characters. Multiple versions of the same character, and then this guy.
Yeah.
And as this character, he's a drunkard, like you said. He's a lecher. He's disgusting. He holds his face and his body completely different than Hugh Jackman does in this film.
Yeah.
And the first time I watched it, I was convinced they literally found a guy who looked like Hugh Jackman. I was like, that's not Hugh Jackman. Yeah. And it looks just like him. But I was like, he's so different that it can't be him.
No.
Which is funny that I was thinking that. And, the whole time, the first time I saw it, I didn't catch that Fallon was...
Yeah, I never caught the Bale. Because you see you see Fallon the whole time. And
that's the great thing with this movie is, just like
hiding
magic tricks,
in plain sight.
They hide a lot of stuff in plain sight. And multiple viewings, you catch it. First viewing, you probably don't, which is like a magic trick. It's just a great multi-layered film.
For sure.
So.
And even like the first time you watch it, I kind of wish I could watch it the first time again. I'll wait. I won't watch it again for like 30 years, so I forget.
Yeah.
But
we'll injure your brain somehow.
Perfect. Yeah. I don't think I could take much more of a beating in my brain, but you watch it on this. You watch it on the surface level, and it makes sense still as a movie. Like a lot of times when movies are doing this foreshadowing and putting these clues in, you can tell, and it kind of makes a broken movie until it's all revealed. Yeah. But here, it all still is fine.
And some twist movies, as they call it. This one, it's not that it is a twist; it's that it's a magic trick. No. So it has a reveal.
But it's a twist.
Yeah, I mean it uses multiple twists. There's too many twists to be a twist movie.
Yeah.
But it is like as many twists as you get in a magic trick, basically. But but some twist movies just don't hold up when you rewatch them. Yeah. Like multiple viewings, you're like, I see this coming from a mile away. It's not really that entertaining.
But this one, it gets better because you see all the details falling into place.
Yeah. And it's so multi-layered and so just so there.
It's satisfying.
And going to this final section basically is when we get all of our reveals.
Yeah.
You see Cutter kind of switch alliances from working with Angiers because he's upset still about the wife dying.
Yeah.
Because that was kind of on his watch. Literally, he had a stopwatch he would watch and cut open the boxes if he needed to. But so he always kind of held a grudge as well and was very fatherly towards Angiers.
But he wouldn't bury another Wayne.
Yeah, exactly. It's not gonna. Anyway, very similarly, he was very warning him like obsession can break a man. Don't get obsessed.
Yeah.
And so he works with Angiers. He constantly is like, look, I got you some new stuff. And eventually, Angiers seeks him out with his new trick that is replicating the transported man, which they call like the new transported man or the improved intro.
Yeah, like it's very on the nose.
Yeah, so it's purposefully made to piss off Borden. And basically, like, I don't know if we've said this in the show yet, but I'm convinced, and I don't know, I could look this up, but I'm convinced the final act of Angiers dying in the water was all a setup from Angiers to capture Borden and get him to go to jail. Because like I said, the diary is just too on the nose, if not.
Yeah.
But I haven't looked up if that's officially it. But
basically the way the trick works is they use Tesla's machine on stage. It makes the duplicate. The floor falls out of the original, basically. And right into that tank where then one copy of Angier dies. The other appears somewhere in
like 20 feet away, basically.
It's always somewhere different, I thought, though.
Well, no, I think it's always like the same distance. He can just calibrate where it goes.
Okay.
So he usually ends up in the stands or backstage, stuff like that, and comes out like running like from across the whole theater within like 2 seconds. Like, just long enough where it's too far for somebody to run.
Yeah.
So it's a great trick, and Borden notices the trapdoor right away.
Yeah.
So that's on his first visit. On his next visit to the thing, it comes back to the opening scene of the movie
where he's going backstage.
Yeah.
He tells one of the stagehands that he's part of the act.
He's like, I'm part of the act, you idiot.
Yeah, you bloody fool. I think he says.
And so he rips off all this like fake prostheses and makeup and stuff and goes down below stage. There's blind stagehands everywhere. So they They can't, spill his secrets. And you see Angiers die again, but he's also getting duplicated by this point.
Yeah. By this point, Borden doesn't. He's trying to break him out.
Yeah, he's literally trying to save this guy who he thinks is like that somebody switched the locks on him. Like he's actually doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because when you see him doing it the first time, you don't really catch that. It's just like, what is this mystery?
Well, they don't show him like using the axe to bust him out and stuff.
But still, you don't like fully grasp even if it's like good or bad when it first happens. But this time you realize like Borden is actually probably a better person. He's still a dick and he's still an asshole.
He's definitely a dick. Like he purposely broke Angier's leg.
Yeah.
He cut off some people's fingers.
It was basically like simple rivalry the way he described it.
Yeah.
But then when he's in jail and all this, it gets revealed that Cutter was not actually part of this plan.
Yeah.
Cutter's been tricked as well.
Yeah.
And he's not happy with it. And he's like, you got to let it go. Like, you're going to send an innocent man to the gallows.
Yeah.
And he's like,
he's not an innocent man.
Yeah. He's like, I can't do that. So it just becomes this point of contention, which culminates. How would you say it culminates?
Well, so they get to the end of the diary. Angier, or I guess Lord Caldwell at this point, shows up at the prison visiting Borden with his daughter.
Yeah, reveals himself.
That's when you see that it's actually Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
It's the first time that Borden would have seen him, so he's like, "You're alive! Like, what the fuck?"
Yeah.
I bet through his head he's like, "Oh my god, you had a twin the whole time too. Like, we should have been hanging out."
Yeah.
But
which he could have if he didn't shoot that first duplicate. Would have solved all of his problems.
That's true, actually.
We've been like, stop. Let's just do this.
Yeah, it's like we don't even need to do magic anymore.
Let's just do this doubles thing that
let's just
Cutter
play tennis.
keeps talking about. Yeah, so let's do doubles tennis. That's a sequel right there. Double
Prestige,
Borden versus
Wimbledon.
Double Angiers. No,
my money's on Angiers as long as it's pre-breaking the leg.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah, because you can't hold a racket with 3 fingers.
Damn, dude.
I said it.
He says it with experience too.
It ends up with this big scene where one of the Bordens is getting hung, and
it's a great scene.
Angier's back at he's back. I guess he's done now with shows.
Yeah. He had agreed with Cutter.
Yeah.
That they got to destroy everything.
Yeah. So he's back at the stage or warehouse wherever everything's kept, surrounded by these tanks full of bodies, his own dead bodies.
Yeah.
So fucking creepy.
Cutter says goodbye to him. He's like, "This is the end.
Yeah.
I still think you're doing the wrong thing. Have a good life."
Yeah.
And leaves.
Yeah.
And then as Cutter's leaving, you see someone walking up to him.
Yeah.
And
someone passes him, I think.
Yeah, it's
right?
it looks, you can figure out that it's Fallon.
Yeah.
Because you've seen Fallon multiple times by this point, and you've seen him recently.
Yeah.
So you can figure it's Fallon.
Yeah.
From a distance. And then when he steps out and reveals himself from the shadows, because he's down there where Angiers is about to destroy everything, you see that it's actually Borden.
Yep.
And so then
he
Borden
shoots him, right?
Borden just holds out a gun and shoots him, and then reveals, which I love that he shot him first, because in so many films it's, let me reveal my plan and then shoot you.
Yeah, it's like, I've got you right where I want
And so
you.
this time he shoots him, which is great, and it's it's the end of the movie by this point, but they reveal everything to each other. So both of them do it, and it adds so much more layers when you see other Borden about to get hung, this Borden revealing the Fallon truth. Angiers finally revealing his full truth to Borden, and it just all kind of comes together.
It's a very satisfying end sequence.
Very satisfying, and then it ends even more so with Cutter doing the bird trick again to the girl and showing her that the other bird's fine or something, and it reflects, like you said, with the what about his brother?
Yeah.
Like all of that comes back in like this tiny moment with reuniting one of the fathers of this girl, because who knows which one it actually is, with their daughter. Yeah. So Borden's back with his daughter. Angiers gets his just desserts.
Yep.
It's satisfying, man.
Yeah.
I love this movie.
It's a good movie. And it's on Netflix.
Yeah. So
and
if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a while, definitely worth watching.
And it's worth revisiting if you did see it.
Yeah. Some of the things they changed from the novel, apparently there was a lot about spiritualism that's just taken out.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I don't think it would fit here.
Yeah.
And then the original novel had a modern day frame story instead of the Borden trial that's framing the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that was their great grandkids and kind of dealing with that. And then you find out
found the journals or something.
Yeah. And then you find out Angiers, his duplicates were one was more corporeal and one was non-corporeal. and
corporeal means
like ghostly versus like a physical body.
Gotcha.
And the one who's kind of fading away from existence manages to use the Tesla machine to transport his essence into the other's body and like take over basically, and he like still walks the earth to this day or something. There's some weird aspect like that they just
weird.
dropped that
they
works in a novel,
it.
but probably not in a movie.
And plus, he couldn't add like another nested story onto this.
That sounds too much like a Winter's Tale, basically.
Yeah.
So, I like I've said,
Yeah.
I enjoy this film. I love nested stories. We've talked about those before.
When they're done right, it's a very satisfying way to tell stories.
What I think, for me, the nested story works a little bit better than Inception because it's a little bit more clear in this one for me. Mm-hmm. Although I never found Inception that confusing.
I didn't either.
I just found this one more intriguing, the way they do the nested story.
This one has a lot of mystery, more mystery to it.
Yeah, and just the setting is like amazing. I like probably the technical aspects of Inception more because technical filmmaking is a wonder.
Yeah, and Inception was doing more to move the needle than this was.
Yeah, for
This
sure.
is very traditional filmmaking.
This is traditional filmmaking, but it's more like cutting edge storytelling in a way.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So the writing is kind of pushing there. Maybe why I like it more. But but I mean, I still love Inception. Not dissing it.
Nolan does good movies. You know?
And where this for me ties back to the Batman series is Angiers lives long enough to become the bad guy, basically. And that's like a big premise of Dark Knight. Yeah. Yep. So instead of dying a hero, he literally becomes the bad guy. They're both bad guys and good guys at certain points, but it's very much a slow decline from good to bad for Angiers.
It feels like a decline in like madness by him.
Borden is more of like a slow redemption.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see those two cross the other way.
Yeah.
Especially because like Hugh Jackman's a more personable actor than Christian Bale.
And this character's more personable.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're both more charming, both more personable. So I think it's pretty brilliant to cast it that way, where you have this very charismatic guy to start it because you need that.
Yeah.
And then he drags you in, and he's such a good actor. He does intensity great, like you said in the Villeneuve movie.
Prisoners. Yeah.
Like in Prisoners, where it's charismatic Hugh Jackman, but he's also like a man at his wit's end. So
for sure. He's got that down.
Yeah. And then, I love a good unreliable narrator.
I do too. It's one of my favorite storytelling devices.
Yeah. And you don't see it done that well in movies usually.
No, I mean...
It's mystery movies if you see it.
Yeah.
And this is definitely pushes the mystery very well.
Or it's like a very small part of a movie.
Yeah.
But this is like throughout.
Like we've mentioned Shyamalan a bunch because we watched a bunch of his stuff. He does unreliable narrators pretty decently.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, other than that... it's a beautiful movie, like, the colors and looks.
Yeah.
It's
nominated for Best Art Direction and Best Cinematography. It lost both to Pan's Labyrinth, by the way.
If you're going to lose to something, lose to that
competition.
One. Good music, too. I enjoyed the music.
Yeah. It's got, like, the period piece stuff to it, too, which is nice.
So, yeah. I liked Inception, dude. I liked The Prestige, dude.
I liked Inception, too.
I like Inception, too.
So. Max, where can the good people find us?
Well, you can find... me and Scott performing weekly at the theater in London, our new magic show.
Yeah.
Or you can...
what would your magician name be?
Let's see. Maybe something like a Reinhardt Ghoul.
There you go.
Reinhardt Ghoul. What about yours?
The Golden Fox.
Oh, look at that. So... you could always find us on Facebook as well, or the website, The Critical Breakdown. We're on all the podcatchers.
Yep. Except Spotify, but that's fine.
That's a sore subject. You can find Reinhardt Gould on Twitter at Max Rivera Film.
You can find me performing magic tricks and watching closely. Or you can find me on Instagram at The Golden Fox, at breakdown_Scott on Instagram. Send us an email at thecriticalbreakdownpodcast at gmail.com. Mm-hmm. Let us know your thoughts on The Prestige, but you probably loved it. If you don't email, we assume you loved it.
Yeah. Jason Brown designs our set stage tricks, and Josh is our beautiful assistant.
Yep. And Wally is the podcast...
Bird?
Yeah. We're the podcast boys. Next week on The Critical Breakdown.
Grab your tissue boxes, because we're going down south to watch Big Fish.
Rated 77% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I will be crying.
As will I.
And I will marry you.
Oh.